Good evening, everyone. And I think part 18, if I got that right, I've lost track. I've just lost track on numbers. It will be probably part 50 by the time I finish, but hey, you know, we're getting there. We've got to the point now where most things have come off the car in order to either assess, repair, or refurbish or replace. And in this case, with the front brakes, complete replacement almost, pretty much, apart from one caliper and the actual brake hoses. We're going to change everything at the front. It's best practice. I don't like what I see. We've got an old brake caliper. We've got discs that are scored beyond hell, which are now in the bin. Well, recycling. Yes. And new brake pads as well, and a good bleed at the front. I'm hoping to do a decent enough bleed that I will not have to actually touch the back brakes. I don't think so, because I've only touched the front brakes, so hopefully those circuits, well, they are diagonal circuits, but did you know that unless you allow the brake fluid to get to below a certain point, in the master cylinder you've got like a circuit which crosses over, so you've got your front right with your back left, etc. Unless you let the brake fluid go very, very low, you will not get air into the backside of the circuit. I've done it before on my Mark 1 Focus before I could bleed my rear brakes, because the wheel cylinder bleed nipples were a bit rounded. Yep, they wouldn't have come off. They'd have probably snapped, actually, to be fair. So I didn't want to bleed them, and I didn't bleed them, and I didn't need to bleed them. So I've worked on quite a few diagonally split cars, which most cars are from sort of the late 80s, mid 80s onwards. And no issues there. But let's take a look at what I'm going to do. There's a few bits and more pieces that I want to change. Right, first thing, I was not happy with that. I don't know what it was, like a cable tie on this outer CV boot, which has been changed. No, this is the original. That one's been changed, but this one's the original. Well, I say it's the original. I think that's been changed, but a much earlier date, because someone's used a cable tie. And I'm going to put a proper clip on. I bought, there's 10 of these, so 5 big ones, 5 small ones, so about £5. I'd buy them in bulk, because you never know when you're going to need them. They always come with a kit, but it's always good to have some spare lying around. And obviously we've got some new brake pad pins. That's the number that for the actual, well, the pins, I should say, the anti-rattle springs, I should say. And we have some Ford Motorcraft brake pads. Just show you the number there. That's the parts number, 2008. Oh, yum. Yes, very nice indeed. And I bought them for £10. So it was in someone's attic. That's happened quite a lot recently. I've got some pad goo. I may use that, I may not use that. We have a brake caliper somewhere. Actually, I've left it in the house. Obviously we're going to need copperies, and we're going to need ceramic breeze for the back of the brake pads. I may not use this stuff, it's probably the same thing. And we have some brake discs. If I can actually, did I open this one or did I not? Probably not, actually. As usual. Yeah, we've got some very small brake discs in there. They are the correct size, and that is the parts number for solid discs at the front. Yep, solid. And they'll fit a wide range of cars. I bought these two for about £18, because I had no idea why they were £18, but I'm assuming they're pretty good because they were still in the boxes. And we've got some brake fluid, of which I'm running a bit low. I have to buy this in bulk because I do so many jobs on brake fluid. And the one-man VisiBleed, that has never let me down. People say bad things about that. Never, honestly, if you don't use it properly, it's not going to work. I'll show you how it works. Anyway, let's get the wheel off and let's crack on. Now, before we start, actually, with my lovely tripod, we have the brake caliper over here. Lovely, bit pitted. It's been in storage for a bit. Comes with the caps. Yeah, really, really nice. Pleased. I've got to swap the sliders over because the sliders need to go in. We're going to give the old sliders a clean. But I've reset that brake caliper. Oh, by the way, guys, if you want to reset brake calipers like I'm going to show you, you can use a caliper wind back tool, but also you can use some water pump pliers and just squeeze it back in. Oh, please take the cap off. There is a couple of things I've done in the engine bay, by the way. I've just attached this hose here to the inlet, the vacuum servo hose back to the servo. I'll show you that in a second. I have had a bit of a clean out here as well with all these. It's looking really clean in there, ready for some new valve stem seals, and I have the tool now to do it. Another job, another day. Anyway, let's get on. Okay, lovely. Well, I just turned it now, so at least you're in a better position. I know that you're far distant from me, but I'll try and move you in. Yeah, we've got the old caliper attached. Everything is here with us. Okay, right, we can take that screw straight out. That's his well, grub screw for the brake disc, since it still works. But in the last episode, remember when we came to this last, we cleaned all this up. I did do some rust killing and it's worked well. You may have noticed some painting going on, guys. I have put a couple of light coats of diamond white on this side, especially around here where you can see, because the arch liner doesn't cover this bit. And then on this side of the brake pipe, stone chip everywhere down here. And I'm glad I've done that. It's all been done thoroughly. All this has been cleaned. I've just cleaned up that. I've just got the last thing really I've got to take off is this timing belt cover, but the crankshaft pulley bolt cover, and we're going to do the timing belt very soon. But yeah, it's cleaned up very well. Even the spring looks decent on this one. Look at that up there. Jesus Christ, that looks good. So I'm glad that it's starting to look a little bit better now. It's starting to look a little bit more in keeping with how good it is. But this stupid, I don't like that. It's like, it is a cable tie. It's going to come off. In fact, that cable tie looks like the ones they've put on this boot for the tie rod. So yeah, that's coming off. Lovely brake caliper carrier here that I had resprayed, caliper silver. Yeah, good to make it look a little bit better. There's no particular technique for doing this, but just make sure you don't cut into the actual boot itself. Let's see. Look at this. I've actually laid it off the boot. That's how tight this is. I mean, look at this. I'm just going to push it. Jesus Christ. See, that's why you don't use these sort of... Why? You don't do that. That's not going to keep it tight. So it's going to be cut off. And you're going to go in the bin of shame. That's the first thing. Honest to God. It's not appropriate to use a cable tie as a CV boot clip. So now, we're going to put the proper stuff on there. Right, now I was asked the question, should I, in another video, should I have put this together before putting it on the boot, on the car? No, you can do it this way. You can just literally, these tags just line in. Now this is a universal one, okay? These are universal ones, but these will fit really nicely. So just put it along the rim, try and hook it around and get these two tangs in a position where you can crimp it, because we're going to use the proper crimp tool. There's a couple of crimp tools, but this is one of them. Okay, so you've got it on. You've got to get these 3 teeth. So there's 1, 2, 3 teeth. You've got to get all 3 of them in these holes. And now that's secure. That's not wobbling anywhere. It's all seated really nicely across. And now what you do is get this tool. I'm going to need 2 hands for this, but basically this tool will just crimp the 2 together. In fact, can I try? Oh, this might be a bit risky. Lovely and crimped. Lovely. Nice and tight. Perfect. Now, brake disc. Okay, we're going to get everything on straight away, starting with the disc. Okay, right, now these are, as far as I'm aware, get out the packet. As far as I'm aware, these are coated brake discs, so they've got some sort of wax on them. So we need to remove that wax straight away with some brake cleaner that I have over here. So I'm just going to pop this on. Lovely. Give it a good wipe off. You do not put anything on this surface. In fact, you just go over and just make sure there's absolutely nothing on here. Okay, that is important. We don't want copperies or anything. Okay, we want this face to meet really nicely. Okay, I will clean this side up first, but because obviously this side is going in first, remember, line up the grub screw hole. Simple as you like. Honestly, if you can't change a brake disc, don't work on cars. It's that easy. It really is. And people say, oh, well, I don't really touch brakes because I wouldn't trust myself. Trust me, with brakes, you don't really want to go wrong, but at the same time, you really can't go wrong because it is a service requirement. And quite frankly, it's very easy to achieve and get right first time. There you go. You just follow my steps. As simple as that. Now, carrier. We have the carrier over here, and we've got a couple of bolts which I've just put on the floor because I did have to take it off just to put the CV boot clip on. There's a decent sized disc. Now, to mount it on, it needs to go in like that. Okay, these two screws, 1 and 2, it has to line up like that. Okay, and put the bolts through here where my finger is. Just tighten them up. These are 17mm bolts, remember that. Most of the time I encounter 16s on carrier bolt. Would help if I actually turned it the right way. Nicely bolted in. Make sure that that grub screw is tight because it will keep the disc nice and still. I do have to say that is the advantage of having a grub screw. When they come out, if you have to drill them out, don't worry about replacing them. Don't replace them. You don't need to. They were just for manufacture. There we go. I'm just going to tighten these up. I will go over them again a little bit later. So not particularly tight, but tight at the moment. Lovely. There we go. Excuse my feet. It's quite a humid day for this time of the year, so bloody hell, really humid. I don't know what's wrong with the temperatures. 1 minute it's raining, next minute it's cold. Well, we've had some decent temperatures up until now. I can't complain, but just rotate the disc fully to make sure you cover all the extremities. There you go. There's nothing on it, so it was pretty clean. But you always do this, particularly with parts that you feel are kind of like sitting in situ for quite a while. That's fair enough. Now we've got to look at this thing. Now we know I'm going to have a look at these sliders and just make sure they are moving, but we are going to have to put some red rubber grease on these. Just bring you in a little bit more. Now, sliding calipers. Now the way sliding calipers work, back in the day, brake calipers used to have one piston here and another piston here, and you'd have pins holding the whole thing together. So you have your brake pads held with pins. But since probably the 1980s, that changed. They discovered, do you know what, we can cheapen brake calipers, keep the cost down, remove that piston, or just have one piston, but have these slider pins that will basically pivot on the body of the caliper. And when you put your foot on the brake, this piston pushes out, but these sliders move in and out, hence pushing this whole body in and out. So essentially what would happen is, when you put your foot on the brake, these pins would move this way, and then it pushes the body forwards into the outer brake pads. So often what I find is if you've got uneven wear between the inner and outer pads, like the inner ones generally wear more, and the outer ones, they do wear, but they may not wear as much. But if there's a massive discrepancy, because there are inefficiencies to this system, it depends on how free these are. But you do have to, what I would do first is just take these caps off and have a look at these sliders. Now these are really good. I've wet sanded these down and they look really, really good. I'm very happy with both of these. But we've got to make sure that there's tons of grease around them. So we're just going to pop that on there for now, just to balance it. Thank you. Red rubber grease. Now you can use this for the piston as well. We're going to just put a little bit on the piston seal, but the best way of doing it is just, as I say, make sure it's nice and clean and just dollop it on. Okay, we just want it dolloped in red rubber grease. It's going to, obviously it's going to get greasy. That's the whole idea of this exercise. Okay, have some rags. I did have to wipe some CV grease. You know how much I love that stuff, guys. Not. Anyway, pop it back in. And remember, don't do it the way I've just done it. Make sure it goes in screw first. We want the hex bit on the outer side. There we go. And it should, there we go. That's nice and free now. Okay, see that? Look at that. Nice. I will put some more in just for good measure. Just dollop it in. Don't worry if you get it all over the place, because that's the idea in some respects. So just wipe the excess off. Lovely. Right, and then we can pop the cap back on and just repeat with the other side. I do apologise if the camera lighting is going a bit forwards and backwards. There's a lot of brightness today. Anyway, put the cap back on that second one, and they are both moving freely, and that's what you want. Now they're done. Now let's just put some red rubber grease on the piston seal itself. I do apologise if you didn't see what I was doing there. There we go. Now I have already retracted, as you can see, I've retracted this piston back in. Okay, you could just get some water pump pliers and just crush it in, but remember to take the cap off, as I said before, because there's no vacuum in the system. The air's got to go somewhere, and the air at the top of that master cylinder is being compressed, and that could cause all sorts of issues. Namely, you probably wouldn't be able to retract this in. It's that compressed. It's as simple as that. But anyway, I've given this caliper a bit of a clean up, and we are raring to go back in. Now it is simply pads time. Now, where are those pads? Oh yes, they are here. Right, what we want is the backside one. Now the backside one, okay, clips into the caliper. Okay, now oh goodness me. Right, now we've got to do, put a bit of ceramic grease. This is, you can use copperies, it's the old-fashioned stuff, but please, I would use the ceramic stuff more or less, because it's a little bit more advanced, and we've moved on a little bit from copperies, but copperies still has its place. I simply smear a light coating on the backside. I generally do it everywhere. There's no real need to, but I generally smear it all over the place, as long as you don't do it a ridiculous amount. Excuse me, you are my tissue. And then you could just wipe off the excess that go round the corners. Then what you do is you get your tub of copperies, and we're just going to smear just a little bit of copperies on the ears. Just on the ears, because these ears are what slide on this ledge here and this ledge at the bottom. Okay, there will be some fraction of a movement, which is why it's really good practice. I know I've painted mine, but even if you're not painting them, just wire brush this ledge down to make sure there's no embedded rust, because that would stop everything from sliding. There's no point in these sliders being free if this ledge is gummed up, because these pads cannot effectively shift when they wear. We're talking not even millimeters here, guys, but the point is you don't want it not being free. Now that is prepared. Now what we usually do is we put it on the back of the caliper, but in this case, from what I can see, you just put it on the ledge. So all we're going to do is just place it in like that. There you go. Okay, that is sitting in that ledge. Now I'll bring you in. Okay, so that's where the piston attaches, and that's where the pad is sitting, on that ledge and that ledge. Okay, it's why it's important to put copperies on that ledge. So we're in a position now where we can put the other one on. The outer pad is here. Okay, lovely, lovely. and we apply the same treatment to this, so we don't confuse we've got all three here. So ceramic on the back side, even though, to be honest, there's no piston on this side. There's no piston, but it's also always good practice to do this. We have these anti-rattle springs which help, but they're not completely rattle free, and we want to give it a bit of assistance. So just a smear, that will do. Thank you very much. And again, we've got to put copperies on the ears. Come on, that's it. Oh, excuse me. Is it possible to have hay fever at this time of the year? Because I swear it's not cold. Right. That is now ready. Place it on. Lovely. Make sure it sits nicely. There we go. See that? It's just sat in there and it's sitting nicely against the pad. There we go. It's sitting nicely on the ledge. Everything's sitting quite nicely. There we go. It just needed a bit of a bang. Just make sure it's all sitting nice and flush in here. This is actually quite tight. This is quite loose, but that's okay. That's no problem. Now, when you do paint your calipers, that paint adds a little micron amount of surface area, so it may be a bit tighter, but still. Anyway, we are now ready for this caliper to go straight over, and it will just go straight over. You're going to have to push your pins out, so we're just going to have to push the pin back in to slide it over this bit. Now, that's weird. So I thought the rear one would actually sit on there, but actually, of course not, Andrew. You've got to put it on the caliper as usual. So just put your sliders back in and pop the rear pad in. Okay, it will pop straight into the caliper. Come on, there we go, like that, and it will just slide on. So it should effectively just slide on like this. Whoops a daisy. Let's make sure it's positioned. Come on, there we go, it's nicely positioned. Lovely jubbly, done. Okie dokie. Right, we can now tighten the slider pins. You've got it sitting like this, and it's all nicely butted up. Yep, I can see that perfectly. Right, we can get the pins in now. Right, you will have to take these pins back out, but we are sitting as we should be. Okay, lovely. Now, what I was going to suggest, so I make sure that ledge is there. Okay, lovely. Okay, yeah, we're sitting nicely down there as well. Okie dokie. Now what you got to do is get these slider pins in. Okay, and we need a H7 hex. And where's it gone? It's here. You preferably need one of these to tighten it, Andrew. That would be better. It's threading in nicely. Just tighten it until it virtually disappears, and it will go tight. Eventually it will just go like that. There you go. Do not over tighten, just butt tight. There you go. Lovely. Those pins are now ready and engaged, which is brilliant. If your caliper isn't on, if it's not seated on properly, those pins will not line up with them holes. So as long as you can line them up, everything is exactly where it should be. Now, what we're going to do is just bring this back round. It's the beauty of having the steering lock off. Why don't most people do that on YouTube? We have got to get these anti-rattle springs on. I did buy these brand new because I didn't like the state of the old ones. If I can open this. Okay. They're exactly the same. Left or right, doesn't matter. You might look at this and think, where the hell does this go on? Well, have a look first. If you're not sure how a clip sits, have a look. Well, we've got the two holes here. that line these two up. Excuse my camera work again. Got these two. What we have to do is make sure that this ear over here is sitting against this face, because that keeps everything really taut. It basically stops. We've secured the caliper that side. This isn't secure, is it? And this clip basically binds that with the carrier. So the caliper and the carrier are binded by these springs. You may need some special tools to help you out here, but I've done this by hand. So we're going to see if it actually plays ball. Right, now the key is just to make sure that is in. Oh, God. Now you might need a screwdriver just to do that, exactly, take it off. It might take a few goes, this. There's no real right and wrong way of doing this. See, I've got the back one in, just about. The front one needs a bit of a bang. I'll get my hammer actually. This is the right tool for the job. Just to make sure there we go, it goes in. Lovely. Right, the best way of getting this spring in is to put that one in first and that on the leg. Okay, and then this will be all over the place. What you've got to do is, with one screwdriver or pry bar, get this round the corner while holding with one finger. So let's say I'm right-handed, so my left hand thumb will be absolutely on that like hell, like my life depended on it. And while you're holding it with the left hand, you're pulling this round, and it just clicked in. That's all done now. That is one disc raring to go. That will be nicely chewed back in. But obviously we've got to do the bleed. Now obviously the bleed will be a bit later on, but now let's go to the other side. Shall we repeat it? Well, we've got to do one thing first. Let's go round. Now, I hate the sun and I'm sick and tired of working in it, so I thought I'd come up with this solution using this very long stick to wedge the car cover between Beatrix and Ruby. Yeah, that's much better. Oh, that was a bit stuck on. Just goes to show what copperies does when you put it on. Right, okay, now there's one thing we have on this side that we don't have on the other side. We have a caliper that, I'm afraid, it's going to have to be replaced. For some reason it's managed to wedge itself down there. I don't know how that's managed to happen. Just turn the axle. Ooh, lovely. Right, well, with its spring, we're just going to, I'm not even going to bother replacing this. I'm just taking the carrier off again. Right, now I'm just going to confirm that this is nice and clean. Just a bit of brake cleaner, not too much. Brake cleaner is getting expensive these days. Has anybody found that out? I buy these in 5-litre tubs, and it's gone from like, well, I used to get them in 5-litre containers for about 15 quid. Now I'd be lucky to get them for 20. So I have to use this stuff wisely these days. Use the resources that I have freely available. But there you go, all nice and good. All the ball joints on this side, the bottom one, this one, it's all cleaned up so well. And these arms, this arm here, that's genuine for that is, this car has been ridiculously well looked after. It's untrue. And it's nice to see that someone who's done the CV boot has put proper clamps on it. Fantastic, on both ends, not just the small end, the big end as well. Although this feels like a universal one because they've actually not cut it. Feels like it anyway. Right, disc. So, some people are going to say, oh, you've gone for Comline discs. I've never had a problem with Comline discs. That's what my Focus Mark 1 wears, and the brakes are excellent. In fact, the Rover 45 is having some work done very soon, with also the same brake discs. So yeah, I would definitely recommend these brake discs. Just a bit more around here, just a smear. It will sort of work its way around. There we go. It's just a protective wax that they put in situ. Perfect. I mean, that is a proper, nice thick brake disc. Not actually as thin as anything. Okie dokie. Rub screw, put it in. I reckon I could change one of these if I was in a race. Probably in 5 minutes. Yeah, the whole thing that I've just showed you on that side. Well, you don't rush on brakes, you never rush, because it's your life at the end of the day. But you can't go wrong, but don't rush, never rush. Anyway, that's all nice. Now, carrier back on. I'm all doing this because I've shown you on this other side. So just hook it in, the bolts in, and thread them. Oh dearie me, I think this is where I might have to stop the episode. It's getting awfully hot out here. I can't tell you how hot it is. It's ridiculous for this time of the year. At some point I took the sliders out of these, and I remember doing it, and I had just a memory relapse because I've done so much recently. They were pretty poor from what I thought, and I threw them in the bin. Well, guess what? The new caliper naturally does not come with bloody slider pins. I thought they did. That's a bit naughty, I find. So I can't continue. I've got to keep this connected to the car. But what I can do is a few bits and pieces. We could get everything lined in, but we can't actually attach the caliper to the actual disc itself. But we'll do a load of other bits and pieces. But yeah, so I'm going to have to leave that for another time and just fit it rather loosely. It does mean I can't do any bleeding today. That's put me back a bit. Ah, damn it. Never mind. These things happen. Okay. We're all in, apart from obviously we ain't got any sliders. So I'm going to leave that there. This, I haven't even attached the springs to yet. I might actually do so in a second. But we've got one slider. I've managed to borrow that slider off the other side. So that slide, there's one slide on that side, there's one slide on this, but I can actually show you what happens when you put your foot on the brake. You get this micro movement because the whole thing slides on the slider naturally. But that's how free they should be, because basically when you put your foot on the brake pedal, it forces the caliper to do that. It pushes this way and it puts pressure on this outer pad. That's how it works. Sliding calipers for you guys. Anyway, cut back to another day. Two days later, we have a kit, a slider kit. Okay, so it should have a hex 7. Believe you me, these sliders, they are exactly the same from I think every 80s Ford to actually not too recently. So if you need a slider for your Focus front brake caliper especially, I think these will fit the bill. Anyway, I've put the other one on the driver's side. I'll just fit it to the passenger side and hook the caliper on at last. Now I've just got to fit this to the bottom of this one. Okay, so it'll just thread in. Now I might have to take this caliper back off, even though I put the spring on and everything, because that may not actually want to screw in to there freely. You have to kind of take the caliper off and sort of twist the caliper round and round to get that in. I know they can actually fight a little bit, but the idea is that you leave the cap where it is. You do not mess with the cap. We don't want gravity coming in because we want that. We don't want brake fluid coming out. We want as little as brake fluid coming out as possible. And if you take the cap off, it's going to flow out like a stream because of gravity. So keep the cap on. And that is topped up to the brim because we don't want the level dropping below around this point, because that is the point at which it starts entering the master cylinder here, and that's when we get air. And that is also when you can get air into the rear brakes, because I believe, I'm not sure which ones are the front and rears. These could be the fronts, these could be the rears as far as I'm aware, but there's two separate circuits and we don't want air going either way, because if we have air going to the rear brakes, you name it guys, we're going to have to do some more work on the back, and I don't want to be disturbing the rear brakes. You don't have to just ignore the book. You don't have to go to the back of the car and bleed from the front. if you've only disturbed the front brakes and the level has not dropped. This is where you have to be quick. If the level has dropped, you're going to have to do all four. Yep, I'll get on. Springs off. Now it should be able to roll all the way out. Slider doesn't want to completely come out. This is where you have to be a bit patient. There we go, done. That is free. Right, lovely. Now, this is where you've got to juggle a little bit, because you're going to have to put that one over here for a second and go. Let's just hook this off as best as we can. We are going to have some brake fluids to get some cardboard in the way. Oh, come on, just come off. Whoa, just twist it round. This is the only way of doing this, guys. You can't really do this with the caliper in situ. I didn't think I could. Right, there we go. Brake fluid going all over the place. We don't want brake fluid going completely everywhere. And just hook this in. Get me orientation. There we go. Hook it in. Off we go. Keep turning it in now. Oh, God. That was a bit of a fight. I had to just turn the camera off and swivel positions just for a second. Then, my God. We've got there eventually, but that was coming out like a stream. And I'm just looking at the master cylinder now, the reservoir. That's good. Right, I think we can give this a bit of a clean up. Brake cleaner is good at this stage. Right, just give it a bit of a clean up. Right. Hook this back up again. Lovely, done. Right, now you can put the sliders in. Wanted to get that lined in. Once I've got that lined in, I just use this as like just to help line things up. Now you take it back out and just smear, and you can now put it on properly, and it will just line straight in. There you go. And just tighten that bottom up as the same. Sorted. Right, and then we have the inevitable job of doing this again. Oh dearie me. Right, as I say, line the holes up. And the last hole, see, that's gone in nicely, but lining this up, oh, it's going to be a pain, this is. Oh, it's gone in. It's gone in really easy this time. I'm just going to give it a whack. I haven't got my hammer with me, can't be arsed. Yeah, if Alfred see this, they might not give me replacement ones. They're buried in nice and deep there. That's exactly what you want. Lovely, nice and secure in there. Done. I mean, you don't need to put anti-rattle ceramic paste on this bit, because this is not contacted by anything. You only want it on this bit, but I generally do it on all. And then what I generally do is just wipe off any excess that doesn't need to be there. That's just me, that is, but just go over and wipe a load of the excess, which is cracking. Just tighten this in the meantime. 14, is a 14 going to do it? It is. It's snug. Oh, that's pretty snug. There you go. Done. Right, if we come round to this side. Yeah, that's a much bigger fitting on this side. It looks like a 12 to me. Ooh, it could be an 11. Yep, it's an 11. So there you go. So I have one each. I keep it on one side. The next thing is I just need to pump the brakes to set them. Right, now on touching this brake pedal, your brakes are going to be very, very sloppy. This is going to be one loose brake pedal, so don't be alarmed. Just give it a few pumps just to set the calipers and the sliders, more importantly, out. Oh, that's sloppy. Right, that's gone a little bit harder now, but you can feel the sponginess in that pedal just a little bit. There's enough to make me think, yeah, it's just going down a little bit too easily. Sometimes I've driven cars where I thought,
is it a bit spongy? And then it turns out maybe it's just my head. But usually if you feel that there is actually a change in the feel of your brake pedal, if your brain is telling you that feels differently, it often is. I will tell you that something is slightly amiss. Maybe you've got a leaking pipe hose, one of them things, or a master cylinder that may be bleeding air because it's not sealing properly. Slaves can go that way. Anyway, next job is bleeding the damn thing. Now there's a variety of different ways you can go about doing this, but I've used the VisiBleed kit before and it works. It has a one-way valve to stop the air coming back. The one-way valve is in here. Okay, so you do not need it immersed. You don't need to fill this with fluid. It can be empty, and the one-way valve has never failed me before. It works an absolute treat. So let's go and hook this on. Well, first of all, usually you've got to do it from furthest away from the master cylinder. We're only doing the front. So normally I've naturally gone to that side automatically. Now I've just realised it's on this side because of this, well, situation where I don't think they could fit that over there because the engine bay is so small, unless they fitted it on the actual bulkhead itself, which is possible, but they just invented this ridiculous cross beam, which I think makes the braking system less efficient, and it definitely probably has some characteristics of that. And that servos that side. So basically we've got to come to this side because this is the furthest away from the master cylinder. Now we're already in a good position here because we've got the correct size brake bleeder on here. Now, excuse me, I've just got to put this through in this hole. Well, I do have a pair of knees so I can keep you focused in. There we go. We put it through there. Okay. Now, there's a reason for that. We hook this to here on the bleed nipple, and this just makes sure, this is just a clamp, it just makes sure that everything is clamped. There you go. No air is going to get out of there, and we can begin the procedure. Of course we have to take this off. There we go. It's quite a high level, to be honest. We haven't lost much fluid at all. In fact, the level is here, which is ridiculous. There's a lot of staining on these, but I've seen that it's quite common on these to have some staining. So let's get some of this brake fluid out. No doubt the system has got some decent fluid in it because all the brake hoses were done. But we're going to find out how nasty it is. So I'm going to pump the pedal and you're going to watch. So we have to crack this off. Not too much, just a little bit. Well, it would help if I actually turned it the right way. There we go. Not too much, not too little. Now, what's happening is it may fight you. Sometimes you do need a two-person to make sure it doesn't fight. That defeats the object. There you go. You got it balanced. Maybe you need to get it this span at the right angle. I didn't put it at the right angle to do that. I should have put it more at sort of this sort of angle, and then when I cracked it, it could lean there, but it's kind of fighting me a little bit. But just leave it like that. So I'm going to place the camera here so you can see what's going on. This is also a good reference for me. I'm certainly going to watch this once I've actually videoed it. So just keep the spanner kind of like that. It's the only faff of this system. That spanner might move in a second. Right, what have we got in here? We've got a bit. We've got some, not the dirtiest of fluid, naturally, because it was changed such a long time ago. Don't worry about this air coming back, because this air, believe you me, this is actually what is stuck in this pipe. It won't get past this point, so I wouldn't worry about that. It will just naturally drain itself into the container. And that's not too bad whatsoever. That pedal went really, really firm. I am just going to double check the master cylinder. So if I just bring you up here. Yeah, you can see the fluid level from here. Look at that. It's still really, really high. So we got a bit more out that time. There was a bit of because I actually loosened. Now this is a point. Don't loosen it off too much. I think I loosened it just a little bit too much, but not to worry, because that is one heck of a rock solid pedal. What I usually do is what I'm going to do is go from this wheel to that wheel. That's going to be the worst one over there because we've changed the caliper. There'll be tons of air in the hose. So that'll be the worst one, but I might come back to this one again. But we've managed to extract quite a bit. I always buy massive containers of this stuff. I tend to go through it quite a bit over the years, so just a little top tip, just fill it up, and I'm going to want to fill it up over the maximum. There we go. It's like water. This is how clear it should be. But anyway, I'm going to leave that in there and go to the next wheel. Okay, I think we can confirm we've got enough fluid out. That's a lot of fluid, including probably some of the fresh fluid that I've put in, but that's the point. And master cylinder wise, reservoir wise, we are still above the minimum, and that's good. You stop right there. You do not go below the minimum, because there'll be a risk of air. I wouldn't say a guarantee of air. I mean, I'm not being funny. You could go probably as low as this. To be fair, it only starts here where the seals are, but I would say any lower than this, guarantee. Below the minimum, there's a risk, but not a guarantee. I think you're still likely to not have any air trapped if you were to go slightly below the minimum. It's just a safety margin that manufacturers put into place. But I could hear the servo going quite nicely. Now if I take that out, the level drops to exactly the minimum, which is exactly where I want to be. I'm just going to top up with a bit of brake fluid and we can finish, because if you look at this pipe, can you see any air bubbles? No, exactly. Great. And to be fair, the pedal went nice and firm, so just make sure that you tighten this back up. I am going to repeat the procedure on that side once more, but the truth is I think I'm going over the top, because the most brake lines on this car will be going to the rear, and quite frankly there's no need to touch them, and I don't want to touch the rear brakes because those wheel cylinders they look like the originals. They could have been replaced because this car was serviced regularly. So just pop this off. Oh, you don't want to come off now. There we go. Lovely. And I would just, to avoid spillage, just let it naturally drain in there. Poisonous stuff. There we go. And that is one rock solid brake disc. I can just about barely turn that. There you go. Done. I'm so sorry that these episodes take such a long time, but the truth is I didn't really want to do this in two parts. I thought that it warranted just one part. Front brakes, really good. We've got all new rear hoses. It's just the brakes at the back that haven't really... I suspect they have been looked at, because the handbrake is excellent, and that is depictant of quite a well-serviced set of rear brakes. I'm not going to touch them, no need. The front ones, desperately needed looking at. And I'm glad that in this little mini series we've replaced a CV boot clip, well, a cable tie for a proper CV boot clip, and we now have some new discs, one new caliper, some new pads, new brake fluid, all bled, nice firm brake pedal. Done. I can now drive this car with confidence, knowing that 90% of the braking, 80-90% is done at the front, and the front is very good. It's your life at the end of the day. Anyway, here's to another episode, another ridiculously long episode. Take care, guys. I hope you made it to the end. I will see you very soon.